At the beginning of the movie, a former gangster named Oh Tae-sik is returning to his hometown. He has recently been released from prison and has promised to discontinue his old lifestyle. He is still feared and respected in his hometown that he once used to rule. On his way, we see him reading notes written in a tiny notebook. He writes all the little things he wants to do in life in said notebook. On reaching his hometown, he goes to his adoptive mother's restaurant. She is known as the Sunflower Lady in the town. Her daughter, Huiju, asked Tae-sik to come back later because her mother is not home. Tae-sik innocently claims that he has nowhere else to go, so she suggests he go to a sauna. Tae-sik takes the advice and goes to a nearby sauna where he is fascinated by the automatic lock. He plays with it for a long time, annoying a man who is trying to relax. The man rudely asks him to keep it down, making Tae-sik apologize. However, he is intimidated and surprised when Tae-sik takes his shirt off and reveals his full body tattoo. In another part of the town, two policemen watch a thug beat a lady in the middle of the streets. But they are too scared to do anything because he is gangster Chang-moo's henchman. They ignore the crime happening right in front of them and drive away. Somewhere else, Chang-moo is in a club punishing a traitor. Everyone in the town is scared of him, but not everyone knows that he used to be Tae-sik's minion before he went to prison. Having nowhere else to go, Tae-sik comes to meet his old friend. Chang-moo is surprised, but he welcomes him to the bar, still respecting him as he did years ago. Tae-sik, however, greets him and leaves instantly, not wanting to be involved in the crimes happening there. Following that, he goes to meet Chang-moo's rival and another gangster of the town, Yang Ki. Yang Ki also welcomes him and pretends to be happy to see him. However, as soon as Tae-sik leaves, he asks his right-hand man to keep an eye on him. Next, Tae-sik goes to the Sunflower Lady's restaurant and meets her. She is overjoyed to have her son back, but Huiju is confused because she had never met him. During dinner, Tae-sik's mother feeds him with her hands, making Huiju jealous. Later, Huiju brings him to the terrace and asks him to follow all her orders if he wants to live in the house. Tae-sik quietly agrees to everything she says. In the following scene, we are introduced to a politician, Cho Pon-soo. He is a corrupt man who wants to build a shopping mall in an area where several locals live. In front of the public, he pretends to be nice and caring, but as soon as he is out of sight, he insults them for believing him. In the meantime, Tae-sik visits a doctor's clinic. He wants to get rid of all his body tattoos because they remind him of his past. However, the doctor claims that the removal will cost a lot of money and it will leave a scar on his body. Disappointed, Tae-sik returns home. Later that day, the Sunflower Lady barges into the politician Cho Pon-soo's office, screaming and cursing. It is revealed that he wants to buy their land to build a shopping mall in the area, but the lady refuses to sell it to him. She bravely threatens him to stay away from them and leaves. At night, Tae-sik and Huiju meet on the terrace. She bosses him around, unknown that he used to be a gangster. Tae-sik doesn't call her out for being rude and continues to do what she says. When Tae-sik is working in the garage the next day, the two policemen from earlier watch him. They reminisce about how much trouble Tae-sik used to cause before he went to prison. A flashback shows us that Tae-sik used to rule the town a few years ago. Current gangsters Chang-moo and Yang Ki were his minions who walked in his footsteps. But after Tae-sik got arrested, both of them wanted to take his place. This made them rivals, and taking the opportunity, Cho Pon-soo used them to become a politician and get on top. Currently, the gangsters work under him and are always competing. Huiju is in her maths class and is having difficulty understanding calculus. After class, Tae-sik comes to pick her up, but her math teacher catches his attention. They go to a private place to talk. It turns out that Tae-sik and she used to date a long time ago. Tae-sik thanks her for always being good to him and leaves. He and Huiji are eating street food when a guy who is obsessed with Huiji starts a fight with him for hitting on his supposed girl. The guy brings Tae-sik to an abandoned building and beats him up along with his friends. They only stop when they notice tattoos all over Tae-sik's body that intimidate them. On returning home, Tae-sik applies ointment to his wounds. Huiju feels bad that he has to suffer because of her. Somewhere else, Cho Pon-soo is in a meeting with both Chang-moo and Yang Ki. He has recently opened the biggest club in the town called the Oracle. He wants one of them to help manage the club. Both the gangsters are eager to get a hold of the club, which adds to the tension between them. Cho Pan-soo declares that the one who can get him the Sunflower Ladies restaurant will be given the responsibility. The very next day, Chang-moo and his henchmen come to the restaurant and start breaking stuff. But as soon as Chang-moo sees Tae-sik, he stops everyone. Tae-sik loses his cool for the first time and strangles Chang-moo, asking him what his intention is. His mother comes outside and makes the thugs go away. Tae-sik asks her what they wanted, but she dismisses the conversation. Chang-moo and Yang-ki meet the next day and decide to work together to get Tae-sik off the town. Tae-sik, on the other hand, is enjoying his crime-free life to the fullest. He helps Huiju with high school maths and says that he also wants to go to college next year. Huiju figures out that Tae-sik is an excellent student when he easily solves the most difficult math problems. At night, Tae-sik returns home with a gift for his mother that he has bought using his first paycheck. They share an emotional hug afterward. Tae-sik also gives Huiju a camera that she had always wanted. At first, she claims she doesn't want it, so Tae-sik keeps the camera with himself. But later at night, she hands him a cup of tea and looks at him hopefully. Tae-sik hands her the gift and she walks away happily. Following that, he crosses the buy gifts note that he had written in his notebook. The next day, the family goes on a picnic by the side of a lake. They eat, sing, and have fun together. At night, Tae-sik is surprised that his old enemy Byung-jin has come to meet him. He calmly advises Tae-sik to move somewhere else with his family because Cho Pan-soo can do anything to get the land. As they talk, Yang-ki's spies watch them and inform their boss about the interaction. Yang-ki quickly calls Chang-moo to his place and tells him about his finding. They believe that Cho Pan-soo has sent Byung-jin to make Tae-sik hand them the restaurant. If Byung-jin is successful in his mission, then the oracle might be given to him instead. So, the two plan to move Tae-sik and his family out of the restaurant as soon as possible. Then, we see Tae-sik and Huijin at the hospital getting Tae-sik's tattoo removed. He has finally gathered enough money for the procedure. On their way home, the two eat food from street vendors. They decide to go to the same college next year. Tae-sik is at work when Chang-moo and his men go to the restaurant and start to break stuff. This time, they manhandle Tae-sik's mother and throw her to the ground. Huijin hits him on the head but is pushed to the ground as well. She runs to get Tae-sik from the garage, but when he returns, the thugs have already left. An angry Tae-sik goes to meet the politician in his office and threatens him to stay away from his family. Cho Pan-soo tries to turn him into a business partner, but fails when Tae-sik bluntly refuses the offer. Yang-ki thinks of a different plan to make Tae-sik go back to prison. He sends some men to beat him up, hoping that he will retaliate and get caught by the police. He even bribes two policemen to arrest him. As Tae-sik is working in the garage, the thugs arrive and start an argument. They hit him brutally, but Tae-sik doesn't react at all. The plan fails and the men drive away. In the evening, Tae-sik is at home telling his mother about the events of the day when Huiju's stalker arrives at the house and makes fun of Tae-sik for getting beat up by random strangers. He also brings up the death of someone named Dopil. The topic is clearly sensitive for both mother and son. It turns out that Dopil was the Sunflower Lady's biological son who was killed by Tae-sik. Huiju hears the conversation and is surprised by the revelation. At night, her mother tells her that she visited Tae-sik in prison after her son died. He cried and seemed regretful of his action. The more she met him, the more she realized that Tae-sik was in need of motherly love, so she adopted him. Huiju then meets Tae-sik on the rooftop and tells him that she forgives him because her brother used to beat their mother for money. The next morning, the mother prints out pages from Dopil's diary that he used to keep before his death. Reading it, she finds out that 10 years ago, Cho Pan-soo sent Dopil to kill Tae-sik. The ensuing fight caused Dopil's death and Tae-sik's imprisonment. If the media finds out about the diary, people will stop supporting Cho Pan-soo. Hence, the mother blackmails him to leave her family alone. But Cho Pan-soo isn't someone who knows how to back off. Now that the mother has crossed a line, he plans to end her for good. The next day, Huiju is returning home from school when her stalker hits her with a brick and gets away on his bike. He has also joined hands with Cho Pon-soo and is on his team now. Tae-sik and his mother run to the hospital to see that she hasn't gained consciousness and the left side of her face is swollen. After that, the mother loses all hope and decides to sell the restaurant. She desires her family's safety more than anything and blames herself for Huiju's condition. Tae-sik goes to meet Cho Pon-soo and the gangsters to tell them that they are finally leaving. The man insults him and demands he cuts his arm for his family's safety. Tae-sik is ready to sacrifice his arm, but at the last minute, Cho Pon-soo stops his men and lets Tae-sik go. He returns to Huiju in the hospital, unknown that Yang Ki and Chang Mu are on their way to his house to kill his mother. Cho Pon-soo doesn't want her to spread the news about his past, so he wants her gone. The gangsters strangle her to death and make it look like a suicide. When Tae-sik returns home, he is beyond devastated at the sight. He cries holding his mother's limp body in his arms. Huiju is still in the hospital, so he has to handle the funeral alone. In the next few days, their restaurant is also destroyed and the land is taken. But because of an earring found on the floor of his mother's room, Tae-sik figures out that the gangsters were the ones who killed her. Meanwhile, Cho Pon-soo and the others are in the opening of Club Oracle. A furious Tae-sik crashes the party and asks who threw a rock at Huiju. The stalker comes forward himself. Tae-sik then asks Byung-jin to get out of the place because he is the only one worthy of life in this room. Byung-jin thanks him for sparing his life and walks outside. Following that, Tae-sik starts to kill everyone who comes in his way. He lights the place on fire and takes on 50 of Cho Pon-soo's men alone. He kills most of them but gets severely injured in the process. Yet, he strangles Chang-mu and Yang Ki to death as they had done to his mother. At last, he kills Cho Pon-soo and takes his revenge. Moments later, he also passes away because of the injuries. Some years later, Huiju is in college and is doing better than ever. In Tae-sik's remembrance, she writes her goals in life in his notebook.